Hello, Christian. Do you hear me?
Yes, Professor Diana.
How are you doing?
Well, I haven't been able to sleep very well, but everything is pretty cool.
Are your babies okay?
Yeah, they're back home. They're much better now, but
Okay,
it's
great.
not easy.
Yeah, I guess. Two babies, yeah. And they require
Hello,
lots
good
of,
evening.
hello. I guess they require
Yeah.
lots of attention and care and, well, lots of things.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, and I'm glad they are okay.
Hey, Andres, what's up?
Hi, Chris. How are
Yeah,
you? Long time no see.
and they have to be fed every 2 hours, so it's
Well, I've
Yeah.
always heard that the first 3 months is very hard. But
And the next 3 months and the first 5 years, and it's
yeah,
always
end of
hard.
the
yeah.
life.
I can tell you by experience, it's always hard.
Are you others? Senador.
It
It's
Well,
doesn't
nice.
get easier with the time.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You get more sleep,
No,
but
but it's
doesn't.
beautiful. It's a great sensation. It's
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
good. Well, good evening, everyone.
yeah, but it's a
Good
beautiful
evening,
sensation.
Diana.
I'm happy.
Okay, good. We'll review tonight the reading that you read last week, which is about how to promote creativity in a learning environment.
Good
So,
evening.
good evening. So, first, I would like to ask you if you remember the definition of learning environment that the reading presents, or what are ideas or words do you associate with learning environment?
I was silencing my I had my thing silenced. It's interesting because they speak that or it says that they don't limit the learning environment just to the school, but they say that it's like a space where all the community shares, and that some interactions are there can be interactions through which the community can learn. So
Exactly.
they are not speaking, they are not seeing a learning environment just as the classroom or just as the school, but in general, I guess, like the environment in which students, teachers, and all the community develops or lives.
Exactly. So that's like the definition of a learning environment. So it's a space where people learn, and it's not limited to a space in a time, but it could be, I mean, this moment that we are having now is part or is considered a learning environment. So it should not, it's not only limited to face-to-face interaction, but also virtual interaction. And the idea is that people get together to learn. So as the title of the reading is Learning Environments to Develop Learners' Creativity, the ideas of how to promote creativity are applied not only to face-to-face interactions, but also to virtual interactions or any other space where people get together and interact to learn something. Good. I'm gonna show you some questions and I would like you guys to read them carefully. Um, where are they? Okay, because at the end, I would like you to, I would like you to choose one question and I would like you to answer it. to give your opinion, to answer the question. So the first one is, how can teachers develop students' creativity? The second one is, how can teachers promote originality in the classroom? The third one is, how can teachers help students to have an open mind attitude towards new experiences? The next one is, how can teachers encourage students' curiosity and motivation? Next one, how can teachers help students to become tolerant to uncertainty? How can teachers help
Oh,
students to have,
those are the like the exposed features.
those are related to the reading. There is no,
Okay.
I mean, the proposal tonight is that you give your opinions based on your experience as teachers or students, or your experience in life. How do you consider creativity, originality, flexibility could be encouraged? And give your opinion. Then we will review what the reading tell us, that those aspects can be encouraged. But there is not only just one answer. So the idea is to share your experiences and opinions, and review what the reading tells or presents about the answers for those questions. So my idea is to present the questions, so you just choose one and try to answer it. Try to give your opinion,
Okay.
right? So, okay, so how to promote originality, how to promote flexibility, how to
If
promote,
I remember, teacher, those are the
Christian.
okay.
This internet is not well.
Yeah. Okay, so let's continue while he gets back. Okay, so how to promote an open mind attitude, curiosity and motivation, tolerance to uncertainty, flexibility, how help students to become tolerant to unsuccessful situations, uh, how to help students become attracted to learning, and that's the last one. Okay, so each one of you please choose one, the one that you want, and please give me your opinions based on your experience as students or teachers. Um, so all of them are related to the idea of trying to be creative. And well, the first one, that is, what is creativity?
Good evening, teacher.
Hello, Amin.
Respect the question. I think the first thing is important. It's important to use the new technologies in the classroom because the student have now have a direct relationship with the technology.
Yeah,
So this is very important.
so yes, I agree. So we cannot deny that nowadays technology is very important, and it opens It gives us lots of opportunities or different opportunities to um, find information, to create things. So yes, I agree with the idea of using technologies to promote creativity. But
Exactly.
what is creativity?
Creativity.
Well, for
Can
me,
we,
creativity
yes, Andres?
is kind of like using what you already know and kind of like mixing that with like imagination to create something original, something unique, something that hasn't happened before, or even making connections where you wouldn't usually make connections. I don't know if I
Yes,
don't know how
I
else to explain it
understand your
really.
idea. So based on what we already know, try to make something new, right? Original, and to make new connections. Uh-huh. Okay. What else? What other ideas do you associate with creativity to
I
define it?
would. Teacher, it's Lina. Good evening. Teacher,
Hello,
can you
Lynn.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good evening, teacher.
Hello, Lynn.
To complement that, Amin said, creativity works in order to solve problems. I think uh, he spoke about how the concept that you have, how the tools that you have, how the ideas or the nourishment that you have can help you how can you use that to solve problems or in a context when you have to apply this. So creativity is to be on como encima, is to be on the, how do you say
On
that,
top.
metacognition, how do you know?
Metacognition.
Metacognition.
Metacognition. Creative is the, I think that is the, no, and according to the test, to the paper, is the skill or the ability to be to use the nourishment that you have to try to solve problems, but is not an activity like memorize, like to repeat. It's something different because is is a project to try to create something new, and it implies to be sensible to the reality, uh, and it's another is to try to be mm, mm, excuse me,
To
I don't
innovate.
find it. I don't find the words, excuse me, but because it's very, I think that is a very, the topic is a little pesado, how do you say it, very
But
Abstract. Heavy.
yes, abstract. But the idea that the students can assume riesgos, that the students can assume risks is not, because the students is not, the idea is not to, there is no a good like a method. The students have to look for in his or her notions to try to solve a new problem. So he should use that he knows, but I think that this is difficult to try to teach that ability. I have not been a teacher in that topic in creativity, but I think that the idea is to put out the students of the comfort, sacarlo de la zona de confort, put out of the comfort, and to give him to the tools, but he should try to use it to solve a new to use in another context, in another situations.
very good, Lina. Yes. So as you mentioned, according to the reading, it is considered an ability.
Yeah.
And since it is considered an ability, according to the reading, we can develop the ability. Monica.
And Can I? Can I? Oh, okay.
Monica and then Christian. Okay. Monica.
Good evening, teacher.
Hello, Monica.
Hello. Teacher, in my case, the creative, I transmit causing impact, joy, surprise, and all this make children get involved for what I want to be.
Okay. Christian and then Giovanni.
Well, well, from my personal like experience, a teacher has to be 100% creative in order to motivate kids, and I think it's a passion. And if you don't have this like this how do you call this ability, like you as a teacher, I think you won't go that far. So I would say teachers do need creativity every single day. For example, I teach in fourth grades, and every day and they see me every single day, 2 hours every day per cycle. So and it becomes boring. So actually we do need to be very creative. If we're not, wow, you won't make it that far. You won't make it. For me,
Okay.
I think I think something that you learn throughout your experience. And well, that's it. I think you need it as a teacher.
All right. So it needs to be also an ability that teachers need to develop.
Yeah.
Giovanni.
Okay, good evening.
Hello.
Okay, teacher, I agree with my classmate because I think that creativity is very important because we need to be original in idea. When you have an original idea, in that moment, you create whatever you want into your mind. So that is creativity. It's when you use the imagination, when you use that tool into your mind and you want to transmit to other, for example, in this case, to another students. Creativity is something that is help you to create new idea because you want to create something different. So I think that is important.
Oh,
Creativity is that.
all right. So you connected with new ideas.
Yes.
Mhm.
It's
Good.
when you create something. Yes, it's an original idea that you have into your mind.
All right. Andres, Felipe, and then Ingrid.
Okay, I think that creativity is a skill, and it's a skill that you can work on. I mean, that you can improve. Meaning, I do think that everyone is creative in a certain way. Maybe uh, you could relate creativity just to things like arts or things like that, and of course, but I think that in the video that we saw, I don't remember right now if it was, I think it was in this course, the video that spoke about the qualities that kids have, and every kid is creative because they play, and when they play they create new worlds, they create things. So every one of us come with the skill to create things and to be creative. The thing is that there are people, students and people in general, who can fall into not into losing or underdeveloping that skill, um, because things become repetitive, and because you get into a cycle. And maybe, as Christian said, teaching is not a job in which you can do that, because you can come up with a certain class or a certain topic and give it to two different grades, and probably it's going to be different both times because there are people involved. So I think that it's a skill, and I think that you can develop it. And basically, the way that I think, or one of the ways that I think you could develop it in students, is when you show students other points of view, other ways of doing, other ways of looking at the same thing, or other ways of solving the same thing. And also when you and we already spoke about it last time, when you ask questions, when you're constantly asking questions, and when you're constantly taking them out of yeah, as Lina, I think I said, their comfort zone, then you start asking them to develop that skill of being creative in every way.
All right. So the idea that you mentioned is also presented in the reading, which is to ask students questions and have them or allow them to provide different solutions to a problem. So in order to promote creativity, according to the reading, we need to be also flexible to allow students to produce different solutions to a problem. According to research, people stop being creative when they start learning at schools. In traditional education, when we want students to like answer questions in the same way or behave in the same way. So according to research, children are very creative, and we lose that when we start learning or when we start our school age. Okay, Ingrid, and then Maria Fernanda.
Okay, I just wanted to like to group some of the things my classmates have said. First of all, we cannot ask our students to do something we don't do. We don't show them. So yes, we as teachers need to be creative first. The second thing is like uh, creativity is like the act of making things that are in our imagination possible or real. So in that case, and according to the reading, the idea is to make them feel part of the environment, see the necessity, the needs, and the challenges and the problems and the possible solutions. So it is important. In my case, I usually do uh, a model. I don't know if you have heard of it. It's called the Osborne Barnes model, and it's like to it has like several stages to to get to a solution of a problem. The first one is like to identify or to get and have an objective. The second one is to gather data, then to clarify the problem, generate ideas, evaluate ideas, and make a plan of action to implement those ideas. So in this case, we help students to develop the whole project. So creativity is something that you can implement better in project-based tasks or lessons.
All right. The stages that you mentioned are also presented in the reading as a way to promote creativity. So, because as we mentioned at the beginning, creativity is considered an ability that can be developed so that we can follow some stages or take into account some aspects so that we help our students to be creative. Thank you, Ingrid. Maria Fernanda?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I just want to share something. I do agree in the fact that creativity is a capacity that we all have when we are born. Actually, what you just mentioned about the school system killing creativity or decreasing that skill is what I'm sure you have heard of the tech talk of Sir Ken Robinson about that school skill creativity, and it's like a critic to the school system itself, and exactly it's exactly that what the previous classmates were saying, that the kids, we are born with that capacity and with that skill. They are just, kids are trying and testing and experiencing and just playing and learning through that. And when they get to school or when we get to school, it's just, you have to do this way. not another way, the way that the teacher says, or you have to learn this way. So I know that we've been changing that, but exactly, it's just like tidying their hands and just tell them to follow the way that they're supposed to learn and the way they're supposed to think and the way they're supposed to do things. And that is just exactly decreasing their opportunities to create things different or to learn things different or to see things different. So I guess, I don't know, are we supposed to answer the questions, one of the questions now, the ones that you showed at the beginning?
Yes, if you want, we can.
If you
Oh,
want.
I wanted to answer the how to encourage curiosity and motivation, but then the last one also caught my attention, how to become attracted to learning. I think both of them together. And it's just and nowadays, well, those of us who teach kids, because I don't know if there are any adult teachers here, but still it would be the same. The rate in which the world is changing and the rate at which kids nowadays learn, and they go like a different speed from like previous generations. We have to, yeah, just give them opportunities for them to make. um, I don't know if you've heard about a now I forgot the name, but it's like the agency, developing agency, and the kids, like the ability for them to act based on their understanding of that their actions have like consequences, but that they are empowered to make a change with the fact of just creating instead of consuming, or yeah, consuming word, they would just create things and doing. So I guess it will be just bringing opportunities into the classroom, and classroom does not necessarily mean a four-wall building, but just anywhere that can, like what we were discussing at the beginning about a learning environment in which they can just make. And then that making would take them to try once and try twice or whatever times that they need, and seeing those failures or those mistakes as part of their own learning process, I would say.
All right. Those opportunities that you mentioned are presented in the reading as problems that students can solve and that are in their context, and that a teacher can promote students, um, as you mentioned, to have them have an active role in order to try to solve those problems in different ways. So we are the ones that can provide students with those opportunities by taking to the classroom situations that they could research or that they could think about in order to solve and have an active role and develop that creativity. Good. Monica, and then what happened with the others that raised the hand? Monica and then Daliana?
Teacher, I found some words that define creativity. Example, inspiration, vision, idea, and knowledge, motivation, innovation, imagination, mind, and brainstorm is important for me.
They are. And they are part of the stages that the author that wrote the article proposes, the first stages to be creative, so that we have an inspiration first, and then uh, we have other stages that take us to finally present a solution or create something. Good. Daliana?
Um, I want to talk about how to promote creativity. I have not had the opportunity to be a teacher, but I think that one way is to teach that is not a bad thing, because sometimes a student do in a different way from what usually be done, and we scold them and tells them that must be in a specific way. I think we need to give them the security and freedom to create and put into practice the idea that they have. That is other point. I think is sometimes children have the idea but don't know how exactly to put it into practice, and therefore they don't express it for fears also to failures or being judged by their classmates. We should explain to the children that sometimes it's not bad to fail. The important thing is to improve. I think we need to get the idea out of the head that creativity is something related only for art. The majority of people only think that creativity is related to the arts, I mean, doing things like that. But the truth, we can apply it to all the classes, and we need to reinforce their own skills and give them the opportunity to solve problems or questions, and the children have the ability to see things from different perceptions and give the answers that we never have taught as adults. And we ask them in a way, and they think the difference, uh, all the possible solutions. And sometimes the adults, we are surprised, like we never told something like that. And I think the creativity should be teaching and learning in all the ways possibles, and don't and make the possible to the children take them like something good.
So
That is that.
the ideas that you just shared, in the ideas that you just shared, you mentioned like one role that we have as teachers, which is to create that environment in which students feel confident to express their ideas and in which their ideas are listened, because there is not only one possible solution to a problem, for example, or because the diversity is accepted in the classroom as, and is also an important part of promoting that creativity.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And
Thank you.
then we had somebody else had raised a hand. Andres and then Ingrid.
Yes. Could you please show us the question that comes before this? I think
Yeah.
the one that is there. So the question is, how can teachers help students to become tolerant to uncertainty? And first of all, I need to say that I think that that is one of the most difficult things,
And so,
because
could you please give me 1 second because I'm running out of battery?
no worries, no worries. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No worries.
Okay.
Okay.
Andres.
So yeah, I was telling you that one, I think that this is a very important question, because well, we all need to deal with uncertainty all the time in life, and our lives are not always, I mean, there are a lot of uncertainties in our lives, so I think it's something that we have to develop necessarily. Now, speaking of how to do it, I think that you need to be kind of disruptive in your classes, and we need to have classes that are not following always the same model, and that are not always following like the same like scheme, or like the same structure, but that are constantly changing, and in which we are having students to not have or having students or giving the students a chance to not receive from us complete products or complete information, but that they have to also find out things on themselves. So I think that when we have open-ended projects and open-ended questions, and when we have them do things that imply that they have to research and they have to look for answers, and that maybe there's not only one correct answer, but there can be many correct answers. And also when we as teachers are the people that in the class are asking questions, like I said before, and are just showing them different points of view and having them like be moved. I think that is the way that we can do that. Sometimes teachers are very, we get like a little bit nervous when we don't see our students advance at the rate that we want, and sometimes we give all the answers and want to give all the answers, and I don't think that's that. I mean, to help them be tolerant to uncertainty, we need to not be the ones who have all the answers, but also have them get to the answers by themselves, and see things and having topics in the class in which we allow them to understand that not always there's one answer. Sometimes there are several answers. So that's that.
Okay, very good. So our role needs to change from controlling the class to facilitate or a tutor, so that the students are the ones that also give their opinions, also participate, or also help to with their ideas, help to develop the class. So sometimes teachers are afraid of losing that control and giving the students the role of participate more and be more active. But that's key in order to produce develop creativity, to change our roles.
Teacher,
Yeah, I agree.
Paola?
yes, teacher. In my opinion, I think that is important to teach for life. Why? Because it's important created a child's independent that for that they, because it's necessary they learn from their own experience. Uh, that helps to create it, security on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the teachers prepare a class, creative class, because sometimes uh, um, we find a bored class. Then the child's maybe they don't understand a topic. For that it's necessary. I know our students, and after prepare a good lesson plan, creative good lesson plan.
Mm-hmm. So that our lessons, as you mentioned, like address the need of preparing the students for life, as you mentioned. So that if we have students do something in the classroom, it's because they will need it for their lives, and not only those classes that we mentioned some encounters before, in which we ask students like only to practice on grammar, which is actually not something that they are going to do out of the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Ingrid and then Monica.
And this is very connected to the next question, the one you showed before about flexibility. And I think there's a new, some schools are implementing this what if. And so I think questioning our students uh, with divergent questions help them to be flexible to different ideas. So what would happen if, yeah, and to give different solutions and allow them to express their opinion, to have an environment where they feel like they can express what they think. So it is good to share a student's effort to make them feel confident in their environment so they can be encouraged to expand their answers or their ideas.
Thank you, Ingrid. Monica?
Yes, teacher. I wanted to talk about the question about tolerance to unsuccessful situations. And I think that parents have a lot to do with this as they raise their children, because I have found in many of my students that they are not tolerant towards their own failures, because their parents have raised them in such a strict way that they can't tolerate when something goes wrong. They can't tolerate if they don't get a 10 or a 5 or an 8. Well, depends on the scale that the school uses, but and it comes from their parents, and that is something very difficult to make parents understand and to then make children understand, because well, maybe even children come to the teachers and say, well, I can't fail, I can't get a 9 because my mom wants a 10, right? And well, you have to deal with the parents. Yeah, that's something difficult. I have had to do it, and well, I say it from my own experience. It's difficult to make a parent understand that it's not about the number, it's about what their children will get in the end. Yeah, that's well, that's my point of view.
Okay. Yeah, currently there are some cases related to students who can't deal with frustration, and sometimes are difficult cases. There are extreme cases in which students that causes students a lot of stress, and that make them that causes that they make decisions that are against themselves. Sometimes there are some cases in the schools in which that has happened. How can we, well, besides talking to teachers, talking to parents and talking to the students that have that problem to accept frustration, how can we deal with that? How can we help the students to tolerate unsuccessful situations?
I think
There
that
were some ideas in the text. Sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
Monica
Thank
and then
you.
Andres.
Yeah, well, there were some ideas in the text which I think are very helpful, because for example they mentioned about the analysis of situations that caused the mistake or the failure. So it's like making students think about what happened at the beginning, or how the mistake was originated.
Exactly.
And also help them with the strategies to minimize that, or to help them deal or copy with that.
Andres?
Me?
I
Andres,
There's two of us.
yeah, and both are Andres Felipe
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Lopez.
Lopez. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that a good strategy that I have seen that works in the classroom, and honestly, I think that everything dealing with like frustration is a pretty long-term process. It's not going to change from one day to another. But I think that one of the a good strategy, and actually lots of schools and lots of like I don't know, guilds are starting to talk about mindfulness, and basically that is forming the habit of knowing how to confront these kinds of situations, and basically letting them know that it's absolutely normal to feel that way, and that there are different strategies, like it says there, to to face those kinds of feelings. For example, many teachers are starting to have like a safe corner where a special part of the room is designated for kids to decide willingly, like, okay, I'm feeling frustrated, I just need to take 5 minutes off and do some breathing exercises, some, I don't know, maybe read a quick story, something like that. And it's strategies so that they start to like to know when they're starting to get frustrated, and when to do, and what to do when they get frustrated.
So that they calm down and then they can.
They keep trying.
Mm. Okay, thank you, Andres. And Andres Felipe Bernal.
Yeah, what I was going to say, I think it's kind of in the same sense of what people just spoke, but a little bit. I think that also we need to allow students to understand that mistakes are okay and that mistakes are opportunities. So opportunities to learn. So when I mean, in the traditional model, and maybe in the model that most of us were raised, uh, mistakes and having something wrong and getting a bad grade or something like that was terrible and was frowned upon. So that generates frustration when you make a mistake and you immediately receive are scolded or receive a bad grade or just or people laugh at you or whatever. That encourages frustration because you need to be perfect all the time. But when you allow mistakes in the classroom and you create a culture inside the classroom in which people are allowed to speak and make mistakes, and mistakes are seen as something positive, because in a certain way, when somebody makes a mistake, it's an opportunity to learn. I think that also helps to help students with their frustration, because then when they make a mistake, they're not feeling like that, like they are not up to par with the rest, but they understand that they are in a process. So I think that one thing that schools need, and we as teachers need to constantly reinforce, is that I always tell my students, if you knew everything, you wouldn't need a school. You come to school to learn, and you make mistakes, and making mistakes, well, it's normal. If you don't know things, you are going to make mistakes. In our case, you're going to make spelling mistakes, and you're going to make, and we all, even if you are in a C2 level, even if you're a native, even if whatever, you make mistakes all the time. We make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from those mistakes, and to take those mistakes and as a chance to get better. And also, I think that has a lot to do with evaluation. If our evaluation is just a summative evaluation in which we just give a final grade, and that's that's encouraging frustration. But when our evaluation is formative, and when we evaluate all the time, and when we give several opportunities, and when evaluation is not just a grade but also a feedback and an opportunity to get better, I think that also helps with frustration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. So the mismatch between evaluation and what we ask students to do in class, or the way they should learn, it needs to be addressed. by teachers. We cannot ask students to be creative and develop like other skills that are not the linguistic ones, and then evaluate them with a test that assess their linguistic skills. We are sending them a wrong message. So that's something that we need to be careful when we assess students, and also remind them the idea that making mistakes is part of learning,
Your life.
as you mentioned. Maria Fernanda?
Yes, I would just hear me. Yes,
Yes, we can
I
hear
would
you.
just to everything that has been said. That I've seen that it works great is having their peers also like assisting that process, meaning those kids who are more tolerant with their mistakes, or kids that have already like overcome that difficulty, they can just get work together with that kid, and just tell him from their own experience, like, yes, it happened to me that way, or I had difficulty with the same thing, and it helped me, whatever it helped them. Just sharing their experience, sharing that they overcome it. So that means that you can also go through that, and the situation is gonna be better later. I don't know. It helps, and it's different when you give that opinion or that advice as a teacher, rather than having their peers do it, because it's like one to one. They feel okay. It's not the teacher who's already an adult and who knows more things than I do. It's just one who's just like me, is here sitting with me, also learning. So I think it's helpful.
Yes, thanks for reminding us that the importance of having the classmates also help with that, with their opinions, or their sharing their experiences, so that the others understand that making mistakes is just normal. Exactly. So all these questions that you are answering are related to creativity, because to promote creativity, we need to allow diversity, we need to allow flexibility, we need to allow uncertainty, we need to allow to teach a student how to deal with frustration, because it's not that they just create something and or they imagine something and that they actually can they made that idea become a reality, but they will go through a process, and in that process all those things like flexibility, like dealing with frustration, will be part of that process. So that's why these questions are related to the idea of promoting creativity. Besides that, being creative is, as you read last time, one ability that needs to be promoted because it's needed in real life, in society needs. Societies need people that are creative to solve problems that happen every day or that are there and nobody has found the solution yet. So it's something that we need to promote in classes. It can be done in our English classes. And as Ingrid mentioned, projects are like a good opportunity or a good way to promote creativity, and also to give us like a scheme, like an idea on a step by step um, way to help the students go through the process in order to create something at the end. Okay, any other question? So the idea is that let's review the questions.
Diana, I wanted to say something.
Christian, yes?
Yes, ma'am. Well, we have talked about all these exposed features by Wallace that he mentioned readings. But as an experienced teacher, I've been teaching for more than 20 years. For me, there's two things that a teacher needs. it's passion and love. And if you don't have love for your kids and motivation, I think a teacher is not born. A teacher is born. A teacher is not made. That's been my quote always. Uh, um, and when you give them love, especially to those kids that need them, that needs that kind of love, kids will make it and they will learn and they will be motivated in your class. So that I think that's like my key, and I'm a great teacher. It's love, and it works. Teacher, I don't know what's your opinion about that quality. A teacher must be lovable. I don't know. That's what I think.
Yeah, so nobody learns. I mean, if you don't have a good rapport with students, they won't feel like learning something from you. And if you don't have that ability to understand that your students, so you won't be able to help them to learn something. So last time we talked about not only being able to plan lessons that are coherent and that have a clear objective, but to develop that ability of those are called social emotional abilities that teachers need to develop. If we don't,
Exactly.
if we are not born with that, so we can develop them in order to understand that students need help and that they are different, so that we need to have good rapport with them in order to help them learn, which is kind of the idea that you express when you say that we need to love what we do, and we need to have students love the idea of learning and being in class is key, as you mentioned, because if we don't have that, as I said before, we could plan nice lessons with nice activities, but if we don't know, if we don't understand that we have in front people with that are very different and uh, that behave in different ways, that need different things, that if we don't understand that difference and if we don't understand, uh, if we are not tolerant to that difference, it's gonna be very difficult that they learned something from us or that we can help them.
Exactly.
Is key. I've seen lots of teachers with nice lesson plans, but they don't have those social emotional skills, so their lessons don't
Exactly.
are cannot or are not successful because of that reason. Thanks
And
for
there's a
that,
teacher, one
Christian.
last thing, and yeah, and I know a lot of friends of mine that are native speakers, and just because they know English, the schools hire them, but they don't have that quality, and they get all this bunch of money. They get 8, 9, 10 million pesos a month, but they don't have that quality what we teachers must have. That is that. Well, that's my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, it is true. Um, with other course, with other class, I was talking about the idea that our program, which is virtual, is not well, it's not gonna continue because the main reason is because um, students that are learning how to be teachers need to be exposed to a lot of practice hours because we become teachers when we teach. So here
Okay.
we check some theories, but then you need to face the reality. When you are with the students, you will find out if you really can help them, if you really tolerate the difference, if you deal.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that's I understand the government in the idea that virtual programs cannot offer students the amount of practice that should be required. And the reason is because we don't, for example, we in our program we don't have students only that live in Bogota. so that we can offer them different spaces for them to practice, but that we have students everywhere, even abroad, so that we
Yeah.
cannot control that of providing them with a space for them to practice and find out if they can actually deal with 40 students, 30 students, and what it means, which is to deal with that difference with 30 different minds and trying to teach them English. So, yeah, what you said is key, is true, and it's something that we just assess when we are in a classroom.
Okay. Thank you, teacher.
Thank you, Christian. Somebody else raise the hand? Giovanni?
Hi, teacher. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, teacher. Well, talking just a little bit about teaching English, it's very important to know something that, well, I have a question. In the elementary school, students, they study English 5 years. In the high school, 6 years. That means 11 years studying English. For example, in this country, in Colombia, you can you can see different school, the public school, the private school, bilingual school, so on, whatever. Now, the question as a teacher, you are going to try to look for a good methodology to teach English to the student, maybe when they finish their high school. Uh, what we expect is maybe they have B1 or B2 would be excellent. But we know that that is impossible. Maybe in the bilingual school, that's right, but most of the students don't have the opportunity to work in that school because they are too expensive. They learn English because they have to study all the morning, in part of the afternoon, in English. All the classes, all the subjects in English, and that is helping to understand more English. And to tell the truth, their parents, most of their parents are professional, and they know how to speak English. The student can practice their English with their parents at home or something like that. But if we focus in the public school, it's different. They practice English maybe five, well, twice or 3 times a week. In another school, 1 hour every day. But they always have the traditional way of learning. When I ask a question, or sometimes when I talk with some students, they always told me that they study in English only to pass a note, no more. And they don't have any interest to learn English because in that moment they are focused in pass a note and no more. That's why when they finish his high school, they don't know how to speak English, or maybe they can't hold a conversation in English with other people. But but a few people, maybe a few students, they have some knowledge in English, sometimes in grammar, or they know how to write a good paragraph or something like that, or maybe to read a magazine. But when they have to talk in English, or they have a conversation in English with other people, or maybe with a native speaker, is going to find a difficulty. Or sometimes when they need to listen in a conversation or any different topic, they have a serious problems. That's what I mean is that we have to look for another wave of motivation. We have to look for another word as a teacher, to give them more to change the methodology, maybe, I think. My my classmate 5 minutes ago said that as a teacher, we shouldn't allow that the other student laugh or make fun of the other students. So because when they feel embarrassing, when they talk, when they are bullying into the classroom, they the student don't feel so good, so they prefer to remain silent and they don't participate or something like that. What I mean is that we need to create a good bilingual atmosphere into the classroom and to participate everybody here inside. And sometimes we have to celebrate the student. They have to create into their minds their English that is going to be it's a subject. It's a very fun subject. I mean, they they should to feel more confident when they speak in English, and sometimes we have to celebrate, or maybe we need to talk with the student to create some story or to live a new experience in their life, and because we are learning a new language, so it's important that the student uh, to learn English and to participate more, to practice in the listening, maybe on the speaking. When they speak, when they express themselves, they need to talk more and maybe to find that subject very different. Because teacher, I really want to tell you that you don't need to get away from the country to learn English. You will be able to learn English here in your own country. What you need is to practice more often, because practice makes perfect. So it's important to practice let's grammar, more more vocabulary, and more conversation. That is the key that you are going to learn English, and maybe you don't need to 11 years to learn English, because when you go to the private English institute, you can learn English in 2 years. And now the question is, why do people speak English in 2 years but can't learn English in 11 years? The methodology is different. Okay, that is all, because that is my question. My question is that we need to be more creativity, to try to understand more the student, and the student should to speak English more into the class, and to participate with the other student, and to find the English class more fun. Maybe I think, teacher, that is a good way to give them to I don't know, to give them the chance or the opportunity to other students to express what they feel.
Giovanni, you mentioned the idea of private schools compared to public schools, and you
Yes.
mentioned two reasons for that difficulty that we have in helping students learn or speak English in 11 years. And the reasons you mentioned are because students don't feel motivated, and you think that probably if we use a different methodology, we could make a change, which is true.
Exactly.
But also you mentioned that the idea that students feel kind of afraid of speaking, which is also a reason why uh, students are students are not good at speaking. So I agree with you in the ideas that not only the fact of changing the methodology for from traditional to a new one, but also the idea of having the students respect others' participations. Will also help to have a nice class so students feel confident to or comfortable to participate.
Correct.
I've observed some classes in those schools that we call in Colombia normales, which are public schools, and they have 40 students. And have what they do very well compared to other public schools is that they teach students uh, or they help the students understand the reason why they are in class, so that they are in class because they need to learn something, and those students behave so different to other students from public schools because they are aware of that, and that's important. If you don't have if students are not willing to get something from the teacher and profit from the class, it's also going to be very difficult to teach something. So besides having a good methodology, besides understanding your students, it's also important to help them understand the reason why they are there and understand that it's important to profit from time. So when we have
I agree.
those three things, it's possible to learn English in a public school with 40 students. I've seen that, so
Yes, correct.
it's possible.
I agree with you, teacher. Yes, that's right.
Okay, Monica?
Yes, teacher. Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to comment on the question about creative learning environment, because reading the text made me reflection about this, as I didn't really think about it before the way I did while and after reading the text. And my reflection is about a school where I worked. Um, well, this school had a great discourse about innovation, modern education, and globalization, and well, all of these modern topics. But what teachers did, well, they talked about creative learning environment. But what teachers did, which is what made me think about the topic, and I think it's a great misconception of the topic, the creative learning environment, because teachers just decorated the classrooms according to the main topic of the term, and they just went on giving the same traditional routinary class every day. So what I think was going on here was that well, this is where I think is the misconception of the creative learning environment. What I think was going on here was that they were creating just an environment for the class, but it wasn't really a creative learning environment. From what I understood in the reading, the creative learning environment is supposed to be the creative learning process, the whole learning process, not just a class different to the routinary class, right? So that's my reflection. I want to be brief. Just wanted to mention that.
Okay, thank you. Here we have like the list of characteristics of creativity. So that are basically the topics that we have reviewed tonight: how to promote originality, how to promote open-mindedness, curiosity, tolerance, flexibility, tolerance to failure, and persistence, right? And I would like any of you help me to read like the stages that the author proposes related to the process of being creative. Since it is something that we can teach because it's a skill, the author proposes some stages that people go through when we are trying to be creative. So can anyone please help me to read?
Yes.
Yes.
Phases of creativity. Interest. It is the learner's intrinsic motivation to solve a problem or be part of a creative situation. Preparation. It implies to find a lot of information about the problem or situation that will be faced. It is also necessary to think about the possible critics and the way to deal with them. It is recommended to make a list of the metacognitive strategies that could be used to deal with drawbacks, knowledge about oneself, about how to learn, about the knowledge acquired, about the strengths and weaknesses, and to assess the actions carried out. Incubation. It implies to let aside the ideas for a short period of time and let the subconscious work. Illumination. It's the emergence of an alternative to solve a problem. Exploitation. It implies to write a timetable, implement it, and evaluate its results. Assessment. It implies self-assessment and other people's checking the efficiency of the actions carried out.
Okay, thank you, Neris. So these are connected to the ideas that Ingrid mentioned at the beginning of the encounter. She mentioned the schema that she uses in the school where she works in order to promote creativity. So this is kind of similar to what she mentions happens at the school where she works. And that when we ask students to work with projects, we also have them go through these stages because projects are very related to research, and research is connected to these ideas of having an interest towards a topic, thinking about how to answer the question, possible problems that we will face. Um, well, here it says that we will leave student ideas aside for a period of time, and then we have alternative ways to solve the question or the problem, having a timetable to work with it and implement it, and then evaluate the results and then assess the results, which is kind of what we do when we work with projects or inquiry based or research. Um, but well, not letting aside what we mentioned in this encounter on the importance of having those social emotional skills that are necessary to have good rapport with students, to have them or to help them to be motivated to learn something, to help them to understand the reason why they are in class. So it's not only the teacher that it gives everything, but we need students' interest in order to learn something. Any question, any idea related to this topic that you want to mention?
No, no question, teacher.
Teacher, can you please put the slide before the slide 25? Maybe the incubation, it implies to let aside the idea for a short period of time and let the subconscious work. I don't know, this is something more abstract about the subconscious work, but is there a method about this incubation? This because subconscious work, but there is a tool or something to help this stage?
No, it's this idea, for example, of incubation. I've experienced that, and I've seen students experience that when they research and they are trying to answer the research question and they are analyzing, for example, the data. They need to stop analyzing the data and like try to analyze all the information they have uh, they have so far in order to help your mind organize everything, all the information, and continue. So same things happen when we try to create something. So we may have the idea, research about it, try to solve the question, and then like with all the information that we have, with all the feedback that we have from other people or information that we have read, we just try to organize everything in our mind. So that's why it says like to let aside the ideas, just the subconscious will try to organize everything. It's like when you have a problem.
It's a mental process, like.
Yeah, it's like when you have a problem.
It's a reflection.
Exactly, it's a reflection. Thank you. It's when we go, when we are going from one place to the other, that we have time. For example, when we are in the bus, we have time to just think of what we did and what we are planning to do, and make decisions of what is the best to carry on. Something like that happens. So we go into a reflective stage to organize the ideas and continue.
Okay, teacher, thanks.
Good comments, questions before we finish?
I have one, but it's regarding last week's quiz. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask.
Yes, it's okay.
For question number 7, it said, the document is divided into several 21st century skills. Which of the following skills is not in the document? Then we had leadership and responsibility, productivity and accountability, social and cross-cultural skills, initiative and self-direction, flexibility and adaptability, curiosity, technology, media and information literacy, creativity and innovation, critical thinking and problem solving, and lastly, communication and collaboration. We learned and we covered that in the previous encounter, and I have my notes and I checked the reading again. I had chosen productivity and accountability as one skill that is not in the document because they do mention leadership, not directly responsibility, but they do mention leadership. And I didn't find I don't know if I missed it, but I didn't find anything that linked to productivity. I mean, no, I'm sorry. I chose productivity and accountability and it was wrong. Supposedly, I don't know if the answer was leadership and responsibility, but I didn't mark that because they do mention leadership. Yes, so I don't know. And of course, I mentioned all the others that I read.
Okay, so what
I
I
have
will
the same question because I did the same, and I was just checking the same thing because I see in the sorry I interrupted.
No,
anyway,
because
okay. I see in one of the character qualities that they mention in the reading, there is leadership, and yes, their responsibility is not mentioned, but I think it's implicit in some of the skills that they mentioned there. So yeah, I had the same question because I also made the same mistake. Well, to me, I don't know. To me, it's not a mistake. I thought it was productivity and accountability because those I didn't find them in the 21st century skill text. So I have the same doubt.
all right. So I will check the questionnaire, and I will write an email to all of you after I check the questionnaire and see what happened there. If it was my mistake or what happened there. So let me check, and then I email all of you to let you know what I will do about that.
Okay, teacher, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you,
teacher.
Okay, any comment before we finish? Well, the questions that you answer, I mean, all the answers that we have in the article are the ones that you mentioned. So we cover with your answers, we covered also the information that was in the article about the answers for the questions. Any comment or question before we finish?
No, no question, teacher.
No, no question.
Okay, good. So thanks for your participation tonight. I appreciate most of you participated tonight. It was very enriching. And well, I will check, as I told you, the question of the questionnaire, the last questionnaire, and let you know what
Thank
happened
you.
there.
Good evening to all of you.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
teacher.
Thank
See you
you.
Good
next week.
night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Sure.
Thank you. Bye bye.